Welcome to the Heartland Journal podcast with Steve Abramowitz, editor-in-chief of heartlandjournal.com.
Howdy, y'all. Welcome back to the show. I am Steve Abramowitz, and this is the Heartland Journal podcast. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and pass it around. We only grow with your help, and thanks for doing it. And sometimes we do these advocacy podcasts where we really want the people who are our guests to be heard far and wide. So be sure to spread this one around, especially if you live in Tennessee, Middle Tennessee, Cheatham County, and you really think this is an important issue. Go on social media, spread it around. You can grab the link at Rumble or at YouTube or Twitter or anywhere and forward it. And so more awareness will help and go a long way. On this show, we are focusing on our nation today with always an interesting person making a positive change in our community, where I interview people who are making an impact and are lovers of truth. Today, we're talking with a special guest, Nanette Malher, Mahler. With the country reeling from the Great Depression in the 1930s, President Roosevelt created his New Deal to help America recover. The Tennessee Valley Authority was founded to help the hard-hit Tennessee Valley, where it was tasked with improving the quality of life in the region. Signed in 1933, the Tennessee Valley Authority Act created a public corporation to improve the navigability and to provide for the flood control of the Tennessee River, to provide for reforestation and the proper use of marginal lands in the Tennessee Valley, to provide for the agricultural and industrial development of said valley, and for other purposes. Against the backdrop of World War II in the 1940s, TVA launched one of the largest hydropower construction projects ever undertaken in the United States. Serving as the nation's largest electricity supplier, TVA benefited from a 1959 legislation that made its power system self-financing. In the 2000s, with the power demand growing, TVA turned its attention back to clean nuclear energy, returning an idled reactor to service and paved the way to finish construction of another. It also launched the first green power program in the Southeast, it says on its website. Nanette Malher, board member, Cheatham County Election Commission, along with Elke McLeroy, chair, Bruce Gibbs, secretary, Wilson Bell, and Todd Ford, they make up the Election Commission of Cheatham County, where it is their mission to ensure the integrity of every vote cast in Cheatham County by administering election law and procedures equally and fairly to all, by providing the most efficient, accurate, and secure election processes possible, and in all their endeavors exceeding the expectations of the voters, taxpayers, and citizens of Cheatham County in accountability and competence. As of the 2023 census, the population was 42,254 in their county. Its county seat is Ashland City. Cheatham County is located in Middle Tennessee and is part of the Nashville, Davidson, Murfreesboro, Franklin, Tennessee Metropolitan Statistical Area, just northwest of Nashville and along Interstate 24. Founded early 1856, 77 years before TVA Act, TVA is the fourth largest landowner in all of Tennessee. Hello, Nanette. Thank you for joining us today. How are you?
Thank you, Steve. I'm doing great.
Awesome. All right. Well, I wish we were meeting under better circumstances, but this is a very important story to Tennessee, and I'm excited that you're going to tell us all about it. So according to News Channel 5, of all places, in Nashville, they quoted you as saying, "You're worried about your property value and eminent domain." Quote, "What are they going to take from us?" You said you were already a self-described refugee from Nashville, seeking peace and quiet when you moved to Cheatham. So what's going on?
Wow, I don't remember that quote, but okay. That was probably 2 years ago. Well, what has happened here? This fight actually started in 2019, believe it or not. We've had the weight of this on our shoulders for quite a while. We had a man come to our doors with a clipboard, asking if he could ask questions about our homes. And I asked him where he was from and why he was doing this, and he said he couldn't tell me. And so finally I said, "Look, I'm not going to tell you a thing unless you tell me what you're doing." And he said, "Well, okay, I'm from TVA." So that early on, they were doing a survey, and he said they were looking at the property that's right literally yards from my house. So I happen to know somebody on the economic development at the Economic Development Office, and I called him immediately. I said, what's going on? And he said, look, don't worry about it. They've got 2 other properties they're looking at. And if they do anything, it'll just be, something small maybe. And I didn't quite believe that answer. And then look what's happened. That wasn't the answer. So they ended up purchasing this during COVID where everybody else is locked down, but they purchased this in 2020, 286 acres. And then we waited. And in 2023, I got a call on a Friday night at 9 o'clock from a neighbor who said, do you know there's going to be a TVA meeting in Ashland City in a couple of days? And I said, no. And so he sent me this flyer that he got from his neighbor. And I proceeded to print that out, like 100 copies, called my neighbor down the road and said, we've got to distribute this. And we went to the farmer's market on Saturday, and everybody was up in arms because nobody heard about it. So in the meantime, while this was happening, TVA had come to the mayor of the county and asked for a meeting room for about 25 or 30 people for a county of 45,000 people. And they didn't expect many to show up because they really did not publicize it. They said they did. They said they sent letters to all of our neighbors around the area, and they posted notices, and we didn't see it. We didn't get letters. And so about 300 or 400 people showed up, and they were shocked. And they proceeded to tell us, oh, this is going to be great. It's going to be wonderful. And we're looking at it and going, no way, this does not belong here. They told us that night, that was June of 23, that Nashville was growing and they needed power. And so they were going to run gas lines from about 8 miles outside of the area back to the area, eminent domain from all the way out near Highway 12, then through areas of Ashland City, back to the country here, under a spring, and to the site. So it'd be a 900 megawatt methane gas plant, 14 turbines, 10 acres of lithium battery storage, a huge diesel fuel storage tank that sits on top of the water supply, which is the Sycamore Creek, for the entire town of Pleasant View and some people in Ashland City.
Wow.
And we're like, no.
No, of course. So let's break that down a little bit. That's a lot of information.
Yep.
So let's talk about TVA first. This is
Okay.
the good versus bad, the Death Star versus the Rebels. Let's talk about them. So TVA has faced criticism for its role as a major polluter, particularly related to coal-fired power plants. In this era of clean energy and Green New Deal, what has this criticism been about their pollution?
Oh, well, I think that's the reason that this is the weird thing about this. One of the biggest reasons we've been told that they need to have these methane gas plants, and I believe they had plans to do 10 of these across the state of Tennessee. Don't quote me. It's going to be a lot. But the reason one of the reasons was they're getting rid of the coal plants, which they have gotten rid of one. They demolished one. And so they had to then come and create energy another way. And so this was part of that. The problem is that they're starting from scratch in this area. They're taking a pristine rural farmland area, rich in farmland and history, and starting from scratch at a cost that is absolutely astronomical, and not looking at their own properties they already own. They own 293,000 acres in the state of Tennessee. That's the 4th largest landowner in Tennessee. But as far as the pollution goes, they keep saying it's cleaner, methane gas is cleaner. Well, by the time you destroy everything and possibly, pollute an entire water supply for a lot, thousands of people, I can't see what's really great about that.
So the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, TDEC, and Tennessee Attorney General Herbert Slattery III announced a settlement with the Tennessee Valley Authority of a lawsuit against TVA and the management of coal combustion residuals at its Gallatin plant. TVA must complete removal of the ash pond complex within 20 years of TDEC's final approval of the plan. Do you know if they actually did it?
I don't know what's going on with Gallatin. I don't know what's going on. We are so consumed by what's going on in our backyard. You know, we don't, we're not keeping track of all the things going on around us. We have groups that are tracking that. But right now it's all about what's happening right here.
Yeah, I think it speaks to TVA and their history as a partner in the state. And this year, the EPA signed an enforceable agreement with the Tennessee Valley Authority to oversee the removal of coal ash at the TVA Kingston fossil fuel plant in Roane County, Tennessee, where more than 5 million cubic yards of coal ash spilled under the administrative order and agreement of consent, which was entered into under the Superfund law. EPA will oversee the cleanup, and TVA will reimburse EPA for its oversight cost. That'll be expensive also. Are they passing through the cost to energy users like us for those two?
Well, I wouldn't doubt it's part of it. I mean, that was a terrible situation. And so that, to your point, they tell us, "Oh, you can trust us. We'll do this and we'll do that." No, we can't trust you based on your own history. You have an entire history of destroying things. Yeah, we need energy, but not quite the way that you go about it. Um, so yeah, we had an almost 10%. They raised our rates to the legal uh, point where they could raise our rates to help pay for this proposal that they want in Cheatham County.
I
So
thought so,
yeah,
yeah.
I think it's all part of one.
So not only will it pay for that, but it has to pay for all of these past sins as well. Over the past year, TVA was supposed to consider various ways to replace its old coal plants in Kingston, the site of the infamous 2008 coal ash spill. So we're not even at the 20-year mark yet. Sounds like this methane push statewide might be their alternative to
Oh,
their coal sins or coal problems.
that's absolutely correct. It is their alternative, but you know the issue we have here is that it doesn't belong here. It just does not belong here, and it's going to cost an absolute fortune to start from scratch here, where they have alternatives. They were supposed to create alternatives to this plant in their first meeting that they had, where they weren't expecting all of us to show up. They said they would either do it or they wouldn't do it, or they would show alternatives to it. And then they came back when we all were asked to get together the next time and said, "Oh, well, we've just gotten rid of that option of alternative." So there was do it or not do it. And so so we were like, "Well, why did that happen?" And we never got an answer.
No.
So we have someone here who created a wonderful document, who she's in this area. And I mean, in terms of what she does in her job, and she created a wonderful document of alternatives, of which they already own. So,
Yeah, TVA published a final environmental review in February stating its preference for a 1.5 gigawatt methane gas plant, which is the equivalent of about 5% of TVA's total generating capacity mix of 32 gigawatts. Does that sound about right?
are you talking about this plant?
Yeah.
This proposal? Okay, so this was a 900 megawatt plant. Now, 900 megawatts, one of our residents went to Gleason, Tennessee early on, just to get a comparison of what things were like. The Gleason plant is a 500 megawatt plant, and he went there.
Oh,
And
actually, that was the Kingston project that was I just quoted, not
okay,
yours.
okay, well, I'm just saying
Yeah.
that I that the Kingston project and this project are totally different animals. So I'm comparing what's out there to what they want to put here.
Yes.
So the Gleason plant's 500 megawatts. This is 900 megawatts, and we've had people go there and say the noise is ridiculous. There was a neighborhood there, and it's gone. because they destroy people's homes. And then they had to come in and compensate them after the people filed a lawsuit. And there's one man left there, an 80 something year old man, one house. And our neighbor went there and knocked on the door, and he said, yeah, they told us, everything would be fine. And then nobody could live here. They destroyed us. And he said, I stayed because this was my father's home and I didn't want to leave, but I wish I had. So again, it's kind of smoke and mirrors with TVA. They tell you one thing, they do another.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to speak to the other projects and the other settlements to show, like, this is their history of how they actually do
Oh,
things. And so,
absolutely. Oh, yeah.
la-
It's
and last year, the EPA suggested in a letter that the Kingston Methane Project environmental review was not complete. The agency requested the TVA prepare an additional environmental review to address the lack of transparency. You said they knocked on the door and told them it would be fine, but didn't really prove it. Their decision is therefore going to be legally vulnerable, said Amanda Garcia, senior attorney at the Southern Environmental Law Center. I want to know if you're working with her. I have never seen an EPA letter so strongly criticizing one of TVA's project. Sounds bad. Are they doing this methane project before the coal ash spill is even fixed? Are they just basically gonna
Oh,
go
yeah, they're
into your
doing everything
neighborhood
at
and do?
once. I don't think they care. And yes, the Southern Environmental Law Center is actually representing people who are being sued by the Tennessee Gas and Pipeline that works with TVA hand in hand. And we have, other law firms standing behind people here. I don't know if you saw the John Rich video with my neighbor, uh, George, who was being sued by the pipeline people. They wanted to drill 240 some feet down into the ground to see if they could get under the Spring Creek, which is his water supply to his home. We have a lot of people out here on natural springs, and they, if they start blasting, which they said they'd have to do to create this monster, people's water supply would be gone. But here's the real crux of it all. Nobody's going to be able to live here. Despite this lawsuit happening over here with these people and this what's going on over here and their promise to fix and do this, they come in, they say everything's going to be fine when they know well and good that nobody's going to be able to live here. So, I mean, this is the point we're trying to get out is this is 2025, not 1933. When are you going to stop destroying people's lives? When you take from these people to give to these people, and basically now it's giving, we think, to corporations. Corporations need electricity. Nashville is busting at the seams. You got all these corporations coming in and a lot of people coming in, and yeah, you need the energy. Do you know that when they started this, telling us about this proposal, we weren't supposed to get any energy from this. They were just going to take from us and give. And then subsequently they decided, oh, we better not have that argument. We'll put in a little substation here so we can say, yeah, you're going to get electricity. This is what they do. That's just the truth of it.
So that's pretty awesome.
To meet TVA's identified mandate, TVA should consider lower cost, lower risk, and more responsible alternatives that are viable, the EPA wrote, such as using a solar and storage system or a blend of renewables with a smaller amount of gas. An independent study by the Applied Economic Clinic showed that the solar option proposed by TVA could save customers $1.3 billion over 20 years compared to the gas plant. The study says that the gas plant would cost $4.8 billion or $5.1 billion if TVA installed a carbon capture and storage system, and the solar alternative would cost $3.7 billion or $4.2 billion, depending on whether TVA built the solar farms or used power purchase agreements. Going ahead with the methane versus solar and saving billions sounds like not living up to their cost mandate, right? And this is a federal agency. So you got the EPA, a federal agency, telling the TVA, a federal agency, how to do this cheaper, faster, better, and they're apparently not interested.
Well, we're going off in an area that I did not expect. And here's the problem with all of that that you just recited to me. These are very green energy people pushing the narrative for solar. We understand that. I'm not against solar, but that argument doesn't stand here because there's not even enough room to put solar. You have to have acres and acres and acres. This is 286 acres. So that doesn't apply to here. Wind doesn't apply here because we just don't have, enough wind to create anything. And so the argument for this project here is that A, it doesn't belong. They can't put solar on here, so it doesn't matter. And B, it's too costly. So yes, all of these things have been touted by TVA, but why? Because they were following that administration's lead. They're following what, the president basically, from what I've been told, is in charge of appointing board members to TVA. So these board members were appointed by Biden. And yes, they're going to tout the green energy situation. And that energy does not serve enough energy is the problem. Look at what happened in Texas. They had solar and they had wind and people died because, and I'm not arguing against any solar or wind or anything like that specifically. I'm just saying it doesn't serve enough energy, which is why they have to build out 10 methane gas plants as they're destroying the coal plants. So at some point we have to have some logic. Yes, I love the lofty ideas of clean energy. Okay, well, when clean energy can serve the energy, good. But at this point, it can't serve enough. And so in destroying the coal plants, and I've had proponents of green energy agree with me on this. If they had not started to try to destroy the coal plants, which I believe are also, volatile, but if they had not started to try to destroy these plans for all these methane gas plants wouldn't be in the works. That's just the bare, honest truth about
it. Now they're just trying to replace it
in a hurry as opposed to do it environmentally.
Exactly. They're behind. They're behind the times. It's like they haven't taken care of the disastrous things that have happened with coal, and what happened in Kingston was absolutely. I remember when that happened. It was absolutely horrible. So take care of what you need to take care of before you go and destroy something else. And so this entire county is going to be destroyed by what they want to do. I don't care how you put lipstick on the pig. It's just not good. It's not right. It's not good.
So the grandfather of Earth
in the balance is from Tennessee, Al Gore, Vice President of the United States, almost president in 2000. Yet the Environmental Protection Agency has issued administrative compliance orders to TVA for violating Clean Air Act pre-construction obligations, which you could just basically look forward to since that's their history, including failing to obtain permits and install pollution control technology. How come no complaints have been heard from Senator Gore's environmentalists, other celebrities? You mentioned John Rich. He brought my attention to this, but man, that was like yesterday or last week. It wasn't 5 years ago. How come we haven't seen more of the environmentalists come out and defend you and scream from high heavens that this is a potential nuclear disaster, basically, or a toxic disaster in the making?
Oh, they are. Early on, we've had Appalachian Voices and Sierra Club involved. And part of the issue there is that, they can't do solar here. They can't do wind here, So it just, either they're going to do the gas here or they're not. And the other issue is that, now this is from my own personal opinion, okay? I think their arguments are zero carbon. Well, that's not even humanly possible. So what has happened is we have, we're trying to all work together, but we do have, we just don't want the thing here. Bottom line, it doesn't belong here. It needs to go. That's our focus. And that's what the focus needs to be. whatever's going on with everything else, yes, it does play into this, but they're over $20 billion in debt. Okay. And so what is a government agency at $20 billion in debt doing, coming here and building out another project that's going to cost billions when they already own, they're the fourth largest landowner in Tennessee.
I mentioned Gore because he's a politician, and the TVA board has been subject to political appointments and firings, raising questions about political influence on the utilities operations. After Senator Marsha Blackburn and Bill Hagerty criticized the TVA leadership, President Donald Trump has fired one of 9 board members, Michelle Moore. Joe Rich, Beth Geer, Bobby Klein, Bill Rennick, and Wade White, all put there by Biden. Was she of particular concern, or is the whole board corrupt?
Well, I can't speak to a corruption of a board. I will tell you there are only four board members left right now, so they can't even make a decision with 4 people. We had been working with Michelle Moore. She was the one who was canned, but you know, we have new leadership. Lyash was all for putting this here. We have to wait and see how this plays out with the board. I am not an expert about TVA. I'm only a person who is being one of the hundreds, if not thousands of people who will be destroyed by TVA if this thing happens here. We don't want it to be in any other rural county or mess up other farmland. What we're saying here is, regardless, let's look at the history of TVA. What are you doing? Why are you doing what you did 100 years ago? Destroying rural areas. Take what you have and use it. Take what you have already and use it. Do not put this very destructive methane gas plant here. It doesn't belong here.
I think understanding their thoughts, though, are very important to understand what they want to do and what they're going to try to do at any cost, even at the cost of moving
Well, you need to speak to TVA about that.
But some of them are gone, right? So during his first term, Trump fired 2 board members, Skip Thompson, the chair of TVA, and Richard Howarth. Thompson was appointed by Trump, while Howarth was appointed by Obama. So Trump said Thompson was getting paid too much and was hiring foreign workers. What was so bad Trump had to fire his own appointment chairman? I guess maybe it was before you had to work with them one-on-one, or maybe you had some insight.
If you think I know what's in Trump's head, I don't know. I don't know what's in the TVA board's head. I don't know. Or the TVA leadership. What they are telling us they want is to put this thing here. They haven't given us absolute reasons. They haven't given us a lot of evidence. It's just that, oh no, this is just what we need to do. So I can't speak to thoughts in other people's minds. I can only speak to what's happening here.
Okay. Well, the current chairman is not the former chairman, and he was fired for a reason. And it sounded like it was too much money and hiring foreign workers, which that's probably a problem still to this day. But Republican Senator Lamar Alexander, also of Tennessee, former presidential candidate, said the TVA doesn't get any taxpayer money.
Okay, let me stop you there. Can I?
Yes, please.
Because if you will go to stoptva.com, there is a brochure there. There is a picture in that brochure of the deed to this property. And the deed of the property, the ownership, is the United States of America. Who is that? That's us, the taxpayer. So I understand that in the real sense that taxpayers are not funding the actual, ongoing daily things of TVA, but the taxpayers are paying it in increased rates, and they're paying it because the United States of America owns these properties. That's us. So, I will tell you this also, our state representatives tell us this is a federal issue, and the federal representatives tell us this is a state issue. So we have no representation. So when a politician says something, I'm sorry, I kind of go like this, because we're fighting our own fight in this, and it's because of people like John Rich who are bringing this to the table and saying, wait a minute, you can't keep taking from the American public. First, they take our tax dollars, and then they TVA gives us rate increases, and then we're paying in every way we can, and now with our lives. That's what matters. That's what really matters. And if we can get TVA to understand, you can't do business as usual. Yes, you can't do it like you did for Kingston Springs or Kingston, and you can't do it with all the other things at Paradise, Kentucky, and Gleason, and you can't do it this way anymore. Why are a lot of us think that TVA should be dissolved as is and restructured. And maybe that's something Trump could think about in his administration, because there's too much taking from these people and giving it to these people without any. TVA is so huge. It's got 10,000 employees. It has to feed the monster. We are now.
Speaking of the monster, it has to feed
Nashville, its biggest customer, at the expense of the little guys like you and me in the outskirts or the suburbs, which used to be beautiful, pristine, which they look at in terms of wasteland, as opposed to, no, it's actually productive farmland, and people live here and raise families here and go to school here. And just to put a cap on Alexander, and you saying that he's not accurate, he said the White House was spreading misinformation. He said the TVA chief executive officer's pay is lower than other large utilities, and that TVA energy rates are among the lowest in the nation. He was making $8 million a year, and that's not lower than other utilities. It is. In 2023, Duke Energy CEO Lynn Good's total compensation was $20.6 million, including a $1.5 million base salary and significant stock awards. Her 2024 compensation package, which includes a $1.5 million base salary, totaled nearly $21.3 million. The new CEO, Harry Sideris, will receive apparently an annual base salary of $1.3 million. Big difference, $20 million less. So it's obviously working as a government agency, not a for-profit enterprise, even if it is kind of a quasi-private partnership with the federal government. It just seems interesting to me that TVA is the big bad guy, the deep state in Tennessee, and you're getting the brunt of it.
That is exactly right. That is the point. I know that Trump was very upset that Lyash made, it was $10 million, over $10 million that he made. And that has changed. Now, Don Moll is in charge now. And, at least those things are happening. But, TVA needs to do business in a different way, but it's just used to the status quo. This is what they do. They come in to an area and they think they own us. Because they've been given carte blanche, they can do whatever they want. And we're saying, no, this has to stop. You can't come in and say, and that's what's happening. We have residents being sued for big.
Oh, I think your internet paused there on us a little bit. Let's give it a second to buffer.
Are coming in and they want to take people's property, and then
we missed the last 30 seconds of what you said, Nanette. Your internet buffered a little bit.
Oh, okay, sorry. Is that TVA acts like we own nothing? They own us, and there are hundreds of people being sued out here right now for eventual takeover. They'll say, oh, we just want to trump around and take a look. Well, no, they're trumping around so they can take. I think I lost you again.
Yeah, you're in and out. But let me ask you this. So, and I get it. I think what you're saying is that the TVA is pretending to be a nice neighbor by saying we're just looking, but they're actually coming to figure out their shopping list to where they're going to take. In early 2025, so earlier this year, Governor Lee proposed a $92.6 million investment to boost the nuclear industry in Tennessee. That includes $50 million for the development of a small modular reactor at the Clinch River site. This investment is intended to support the TVA authority's efforts to build the nation's first SMR on Tennessee soil. So I think that's important because it's small, and you said there isn't enough space for all the alternatives to methane, but here's one. $10 million to attract advanced nuclear technology companies to the state, good for jobs. 10 million in grants to higher education institutions to support nuclear workforce development, 2.6 million to develop a regulatory framework for commercial nuclear fusion technology, and 20 million for the federal grant matching fund to assist Tennessee businesses and universities applying for the federal research grants. Governor Lee emphasized the benefits of nuclear energy as a safe, clean, and reliable energy source. The development of nuclear energy in Tennessee aims to attract companies and create jobs in the nuclear industry, boost the state's economy, ensure energy independence and security for Tennessee. Do you agree it's safe, clean, and reliable? And could that be for your neighbors instead of this?
No, I don't know how much clearer I can be. Nothing belongs right here because I don't care if they put nuclear out here. We won't be able to live here. They will take what we own. I thought this conversation was going to be about what was happening in Cheatham County.
Oh, for
I
sure.
don't,
And it's
I
very
don't,
important
I don't, I can't speak to what the governor wants about nuclear and all that. When I was, from the time I was 12 years old, I grew up a mile from a nuclear power station. And I don't want to live next to a nuclear power station. Okay. I don't care if it's different now or cleaner now. What we're saying is this stuff does not belong right here. No, nothing. We want our property back. This was sold. I'll tell you something else. 2 years ago, TVA was FOIA'd to get what they paid for that property. They have never responded. They won't respond. And so there are strange things that have gone on about this property right here. And so the point, I appreciate you bringing up all these other things, these factors. There are very many factors involved, but the point is this does not belong in Cheatham County. Nothing. We want our property back. And yes, the governor is pushing all of these businesses to come in here. The point is, again, TVA owns enough property in Tennessee to take care of this in another way, a better way, a cheaper way. And also, there's only one way in and out of this property based on their own third-party study. One way. Should there be one way to get into something that volatile? No. And that one way is going around your elbow to get to your thumb. You'd have to rip up a good portion of 12, an entire bridge system across the Sycamore Creek, come around and take people's property all in a different area and come back around to this plant. We tried to tell them there was no way to get here from day one. And we really think somebody just put their finger on a map and said there without vetting this. They did not vet this property.
Yep. And I totally agree with you. I think loud and clear, you're saying just stop, don't do this. Unfortunately, I believe that somewhere between what Lee wants from nuclear and what TVA wants from methane, it's going to steamroll right over the top. And so I'm just trying to flush out all the variables to say, well, what is TVA? Who is TVA? What does TVA do? What do they want? And what are they going to get? Even in the best case scenario. And I don't think it's, well, don't do it in this county, do it in the next county, or don't do it at all, or do it on the land that you already own, which is a great idea. But unfortunately, that isn't the thing. And so Tennessee Valley Authority is a federally owned utility. So this is coming out of DC, basically, not Nashville or anywhere in Tennessee. TVA owns 293,000 acres in the state that they are not wanting to use. They only want your 280 acres. They are 20 billion in debt. So they do need to make money to pay and service that debt somehow, some way. And it definitely comes from the education department and the defense department and all the rest because it's the general fund. The yearly salaries of the top 5 executives is over $30 million. I don't know many companies that are $20 billion underwater, but still have the top 5 people making $30 billion.
Yeah.
And so as a federally owned utility, maybe it needs its own Doge and Elon Musk or Tim Burchett to come in there and look into it.
Exactly.
I mentioned Haggerty and Blackburn have already been involved in the mismanagement, not to their fault, but to actually point it out and to help try to fix it under Trump last time. But we've all heard, a lot about NIMBY, not in my backyard, but what TVA is doing to you is actually in the front yard, 14 turbines, when the next two, Gleason and Brownsville, have three or four. So four times the
Oh
size.
yeah, absolutely. 4 times.
You're going to need ear protection, right?
No, we won't be able to live here. I've already been told that. TVA told me. No, I brought TVA representatives out here and I was told no. So yeah, I mean this.
Well, that gets us to the eminent domain conversation, and
Yeah.
I'm glad we segued because, for sake of time. So tell us, if you're not allowed to live there because it's just environmentally impossible for humans to live there or to sleep at night with the noise, what is eminent domain doing to you that you have to fight against that clause in the Constitution?
Well, it's coming at us from all sides. The transmission lines, the pipelines, and those of us who live right around here. I live next to a century farm, and these people are generational farmers that their families live all down the road. How are you going to move? Where are you going to put farmers who have hundreds of acres and then their families live next door to them? Where do you expect them to go? I mean, especially when they've been here. This is a very historical area. They're cemeteries. They have their own cemeteries. So the people who live right around here, they're just going to let us, we are being killed inch by inch because the eminent domain for us won't happen until we just have to give up. Because we won't, just the same thing they did with Gleason. They told those people, oh yeah, and then they're like, we can't live here. You've destroyed our homes, that this is a process, a nefarious process.
It's the same thing they did to the
Reprehensible.
Indians in Florida. Yeah, I mean, basically, they moved the indigenous people off the land into some other reservation, which I guess they were not even providing for you. Here, we're going to move you like a Chinese dam construction from
It will
down
have to
here.
be, it will have to be a class action suit for those of us around here probably, because this is their mode of operation. And we're, and people react to this is like, well, it's not me, so I can't do anything about it. Oh, it's the government. You can't. No. If everybody thinks that way, one day it's going to be you. One day it could be you. And also, if I thought we were the government. I thought we, the people, were the government. And I thought I was an American and I owned something. And one of our residents who's in her late 80s was being sued for transmission lines. And she said, you think you own something? You don't own nothing. And that is true. So in this case, we're trying to bring light to this big project in Cheatham County. We're right next door to Nashville, but we are not Nashville and we don't want to be Nashville. We're a agricultural county. I mean, we got people moving in here like crazy and we have builders who are building out subdivisions. And, but at what point do we stop taking farmland? I think the Farm Bureau says there's like 10 acres an hour are being taken in the state of Tennessee. Why? I mean, at what point do you stop progressing, bringing, business in to help people when you're actually destroying people? This is what I don't understand.
One of the big business aspects
I wanted to talk about 10.5 of those acres of lithium battery storage. People don't know this, but when Pacific Palisades burned I guess it was 4 months ago, so did a lot of Teslas and Prius cars with their lithium ion batteries. A California battery plant burned too, and industry best practices is to just let it burn. Dousing it with water is ineffective. We talked about past TVA spills and need to clean up and excuse me, and pay fines. They end up passing on to you. What do you think might happen if that new storage facility burns?
Oh, well, we have 5 schools within 5 miles of this place, let alone, and those are supposed to be our emergency evacuation areas. So we would be like what happened with the train derailment, people just had to leave and then couldn't come back. And the lithium battery storage, I think it has to be regulated at an 85-degree temperature at a high. And if anything goes wrong with not being able to supply cooling for that, it's terrible. And no, you can't put it out with water. So, okay, just imagine this: 14 turbines, methane gas, diesel fuel storage, and 10 acres of batteries, all in one location. This doesn't logically compute.
Not if you're
And
environmentally friendly.
Like I tried to make the case with Al Gore and his Earth in the Balance. I mean, that is just a toxic stew of disaster waiting to happen, as they say.
exactly, it is exactly. The electric battery thing, just me personally, this is just me personally. Um, I think it's a toxic environmental nightmare. I mean, I'm all for alternative, finding alternative ways to create energy, but this is not it.
So this is 2025. In
Yeah.
2020, the mayor of rural Cheatham County discovered that the Tennessee Valley Authority bought about 200 acres of rolling farmland in the middle of nowhere, quote unquote, in his county, which lies just west of Nashville and is home to about 42,000 people, like you. He asked another county official who formerly worked for the TVA, the nation's largest public power company, to find out what it planned to do with the land. The answer they got was, quote unquote, future use, and they speculated a solar farm might be in the works. It's kind of the last thing we thought about it. McCarver said during an interview in his office in May. Then a year ago, last summer, TVA called here needing a place to have a public meeting. You talked about that. The authority was now proposing a 900 megawatt natural gas fired power plant, battery storage, pipelines, and other associated infrastructure for the site, which came as a shock to McCarver and many other locals who felt it was wholly inappropriate for the area. There's no way on earth the county would let someone put something like that here. And because they are TVA, they feel they can do it and just push us aside. Tonight, the voice was very loud. We're not going to be pushed aside that easily. Cheatham County Mayor Carrie McCarver. So it sounds like the mayor and the county commission don't want it. So is that why eminent domain is even in the conversation?
Well, first of all, nobody here wants it. Every single municipality, the county, the commission have filed official resolutions against it. TVA has stated through their PR person that they didn't want to be anywhere, that they weren't wanted. But, we had a whole lot of people show up in February of 24 against them being here, but they still won't stop. So eminent domain, again, eminent domain, obviously, the federal government has allowed TVA to take whatever they want. So we have to appeal to the federal government at this point to stop this.
So that would be the feds, obviously. They're all Biden appointees. We have a new sheriff in town with Trump and a new interior secretary I'll talk about in a second. But has anyone from the state or like Marsha Blackburn and Haggerty Marsha Blackburn especially, they say she wants to run for governor. Have they reached out to you to intervene on your behalf and try to stop it?
We have reached out to them over and over. I have personally stood in front of Marsha Blackburn in person and Mark Green. Marsha Blackburn did not want to speak to me about this subject. Mark Green said it was a state issue. Mary Littleton, our state representative, was sitting right there, and the state says it's a federal issue. Again, I've stated this before at the beginning of this conversation. We have no representation. We have to go to the top, which we are doing. We are going straight to the top. Now, I know people have ulterior motives. They want to run for governor. They want to be this. They want to do that. But I thought they were elected to represent us. I vote for these people, but when push comes to shove and you've got a difficult situation, people start running. And it takes somebody like a John Rich to come in and say, hey, wait a minute. You can't do this. We've been working at this for years now. We wake up with it in the morning. We go to bed with it at night. My neighbor has called me and said, I can't sleep. I worry for their sake. They've been here for 100 years, and the eminent domain is what it is. We have to get somebody at the top. We're trying to appeal to President Trump to take a look at this and understand how devastating it is.
Yeah, it's almost
Yeah,
like when Matt Walsh was the one who had to use his entertainment platform to bring awareness to what a woman is, whatnot, and then it became a Tennessee issue, and they were able to stop Vanderbilt from doing surgeries. I mean, this is the type of thing you needed a celebrity like John Rich to get all the way up there because the news won't do it, the politicians won't do it. I got a quote here. I called the county attorney and said, "What's our options?" McCarver said. The answer he got, "It's TVA. You don't have any options." So it's almost like a fait accompli, and you'll have to accept it or move out again, like you did from Tennessee to Cheatham in the first place. They, unlike many utilities, have the ability to do big things and do big things faster, said Daniel Tate, executive director of Energy Alabama, a clean energy advocacy organization, and a research and communications manager for the Energy and Policy Institute, a utility watchdog group. Tate and others say TVA's leadership has been historically dismissive of the role renewable power can play on the grid. So, and you agree with that. They think they are lords and masters over you. The Sierra Club gave the TVA an F last year on its latest ranking of how well utilities are living up to their own decarbonization goals and transitioning to cleaner power. The dirty truth about utility climate pledges showing, that's what it's called, showing no improvement over the past 2 years grades, so F for the last 2 years. TVA also plans far more new gas capacity than any other utility in the country, with nearly 6,000 megawatts to come from gas-fired power plants and pipelines by 2030. So this is just one of many of their things. Methane gas is a dirty fossil fuel that's 80 times more powerful than carbon dioxide over a 20-year time frame and a major contributor to the climate crisis. Does Al Gore know about this? And why can we not get the Environmental Protection Agency to step in on your behalf to stop this just based on their pollution record?
well, we are getting to the EPA also. You know, we're doing a lot of things behind the scenes that we really can't talk about. But you know, the bottom line is, you can talk about clean energy all you want. You have to provide clean energy that actually provides the energy that's needed, and then you know, methane gas, there's TVA says, is cleaner than coal. Okay, but if you're going to make 10 of those plants to make up for one or two coal plants, how clean is that going to be? Besides, you're going to take all this property from people, you know. So the again, the argument that we have here, we don't want anybody else to be destroyed by anything like this. We think TVA has the brains and the wherewithal and the resources to create something better within what they already have, and not start from scratch here where it costs a ridiculous amount of money and will destroy even more lives. It's illogical. It's not necessary.
Yeah. Okay, so just to put a tapper on that, TVA said could lead the nation in the green energy transition, but instead, year after year, it's moving to add fossil fuels to the grid, which is already causing rates to increase, stated Amy Kelly, field organization strategist for the Sierra Club, who I hope is trying to help you. I guess I want to know, has TVA done any even alternative energy analysis to see if something environmentally friendly can be done so you don't have to move? Or is methane their sole focus now? It's unhealthy and it's expensive, and TVA's gas plan will also commit the utilities 10 million customers to paying very volatile methane gas prices for decades, even at the cost of renewable energy sources continue to fall. And that's against the TVA's mandate that was signed in 1930 when it was originally in. So they're basically rogue. And by spending billions of dollars on fossil fuels build out, the TVA will burden families with higher monthly power bills, adding fuel cost fees and even more rate increases. Sierra Club obviously prefers alternative energy, but do you think they are right? Billions spent and still higher bills could make an economic case against them doing this to you. And TVA is under federal law jurisdiction, so the state, Billy, they can't do anything. In 2020, the feds bought that land during COVID when no one was paying attention. Fox 17 did a Freedom of Information Act request for costs that have been totally ignored. That's illegal. and that was under Biden. Again, any
I've
hope?
stated all of that. I've stated all of that in our
So is there any
conversation.
hope that the Department of Interior's Doug Burgum, new guy in town, could halt this any day, but with just a stroke of a pen?
These are the only people that can save us. Trump and the people who are in control now are the last,
Yeah.
the last. So, what we're trying to do is prove the point. We have a study of alternative sites. We have a study of the cost that it would take to even just bring this stuff in here. We've been doing the work that TVA should be doing. We've lost years of our lives. We're putting in our own money to save what we already own. I mean, this is the ridiculousness of, is this America anymore? I don't think so. And so, when we say we don't think this is the right location, it's not. It's not that we don't think, it's just not. You have to look at the facts.
Yeah.
And
You're
whatever
doing it out of self-defense, obviously.
whatever the Sierra Club or Gore or any politician says, Haggerty or whatever. The point being, right now, yes, this is the wrong location. Yes, TVA is a rogue agency. Yes, you need to really look at them. They are out of control. And yes, we want alternative ways to do things, but not at the expense of real people's lives and their money and everything. I'm going to lose everything I've worked for in my entire life.
Yeah.
And I'm just one person.
People agree
All
with
around.
you. Here's some quotes from your neighbors. This land is ideal for homeowners, farmers, and wildlife, not a TVA plant. Nashville needs it. Take it to Nashville. Paul Binkley, a farmer. 2024 tractor parade opposing TVA. I don't understand why you picked this spot considering you have this school, Cheatham County Middle School, and a high school, which are tornado shelters and used for evacuations. What if you have a methane gas leak? What's going to happen to the children that are in these buildings at that time?
Yeah, that was my
Virginia
neighbor.
Gaylord. Yep. Excellent question. Why do you think they picked it? And I saw somewhere that the 300 acres were only $10.
Wow. Well, we don't know because we can't get the information back. We have a FOIA request. We can't get it back. Okay. Well, why would that be? Because they don't want to tell us. And so at some point they're going to have to cough the information up because we're not stopping. If we have to stand in front of bulldozers, we're not stopping. But because we have everything to lose, everything. We've already lost it. So we have to keep going. See?
I do. In Tennessee, suing to stop eminent domain requires demonstrating that the government's actions don't meet the public use requirement or that just compensation isn't being offered. I don't think $10 was just. Landowners can challenge the government's right to take property if they believe the purpose isn't a public one or if the offered compensation isn't fair market value. But again, it's the U.S. government. Courts tend to respect the government's power of eminent domain, making it difficult to challenge the taking on the grounds that it's not for a legitimate public use. Eminent domain cases are generally difficult for landowners to win, especially when challenging the taking itself. Do you still have confidence you can push them out?
I have to. I don't have a choice. We don't have a choice out here. And we've got some people on our side now who really might be able to help us. And this is a magnifying glass of what's going on across the country, not just in Tennessee. In my heart of hearts, this is way big. This is a globalist sort of takeover. We could do a whole nother hour on this. Go look up who the stakeholders are of TVA. Go look up the stakeholders of TVA, and then look up the stakeholders of all the energy companies in this country. And maybe you could post what you find, because this is huge.
I'm sure something that rhymes with BlackRock has something to do with it
somewhere. Something like that. Yeah. And I get calls all the time from foreign speaking people. Oh, we would like to buy your property. Oh, why? And I say, oh, really? Okay. What company are you from? And then they'll say, and then I'll say, and who are the stakeholders of your company? Click. This is what's going on out here. It's a land grab. It's a land grab. This is not just about, I don't think personally, I'm going to say personally, and a lot of us agree with this. This is not just about TVA. This is a land grab. You know, there are certain organizations and people in this country that don't want private ownership.
Wow. Well, Nanette, thank you very much for coming on my show and telling us all this. I'm going to spread it as far and wide as I humanly can. We are at the end here, so tell everyone where they can go to find out more about Stop TVA Now, find out about you, any social media campaigns you're doing, any speaking engagements you might have. Tell us anything we can to follow up.
Okay. First of all, you can go to stoptva.com. There's a brochure there that has a whole lot of facts, the timeline of when this started through January of this year. And you can go to X and go to stoptva_now. We post, what's going on. You can email us at helpus@stoptva.com. You can call all of your senators and your representatives, and you can get anything that you can to the federal agencies, the Energy Department, and even President Trump. Just do anything you can. If you feel so inclined to worry about your own property, that someday, this could happen to you, because it could. And then you're going to be me sitting here.
Well, thanks again for coming on. I hope to have you back again one day when you're successful and you save your own land and your neighbors from displacement. That would be fantastic. So hang on, folks. I will be right back.
Sing a song about the heartland, the only place I feel at home. Sing about the way a good man works until the daylight's gone.
Thanks for coming back. I sure hope you did. It's that time to remind everyone to please subscribe to heartlandjournal.com. That is how we grow and keep this content free for you. Now, the Heartland Journal News. I've written a few columns about judges and how they are the new front lines of the lawfare racket we followed for the last 10 years now. So here are 16 of the most egregious injunctions barring the Trump administration from doing its job. Courts protecting illegal immigrants and terrorists. Number 1, Pasito versus Trump. On his first day in office, Trump signed an executive order suspending a refugee resettlement program and freezing funding for processing refugees. The order quickly brought lawsuits from Open Borders groups and others who sought to force the administration of about 12,000 refugees into the United States. The admission. U.S. District Judge Jamal Whitehead, an appointee of former President Joe Biden on the bench in Washington State, demanded earlier this month that those thousands of foreigners be settled in the country. I demand it. That demand came after a Ninth Circuit opinion that narrowed Whitehead's earlier opinion, but later clarified that the large class of people who met certain criteria, namely those who had already been approved for processing, would be settled. The Trump administration sought to only settle 160 refugees who had already booked flights prior to the executive order. Whitehead, appearing to manifest his preferred political outcome, said the Trump administration's read was not just reading between the lines, but hallucinating new text that simply is not there, quote unquote. The government is free, of course, to seek further classification from the Ninth Circuit, but the government is not free to disobey statutory and constitutional law and the direct orders of this court and the Ninth Circuit while it seeks such clarification, Whitehead wrote. Ironically, Whitehead appears to simply bypass the president's broad statutory authority to suspend the entry of any class of aliens, whatever he finds that their entry would be detrimental to the interests of the United States, found in 8 U.S.C. 1182F. Further, by its terms, 1182F exudes deference to the president in every clause and provides a comprehensive delegation of authority as decided by the U.S. Supreme Court in Trump versus Hawaii in 2018. Number 2, Community Legal Services in East Palo Alto versus HHS. In March, the Department of the Interior terminated funding for the Department of Health and Human Services Office of Refugee Resettlement program to pay for legal services for unaccompanied alien children, UAC. So the DOI and the HHS and the ORR denied UAC. The termination required that nonprofits involved with the program stop the illegal representation of the unaccompanied minors. Many of those nonprofits then sued DOI, HHS, and ORR to block the termination of the funding. And the case was miraculously placed before Mexican-born U.S. District Court Judge Aliceli Martinez Alguin, a Biden appointee, of course, serving in the Northern District of California, of course, who had previously worked as the managing attorney for Community Legal Services in East Palo Alto, the lead plaintiff. The Trump administration filed a motion for Martinez Olguin's recusal, citing bias toward the plaintiff and the fact that she has made various statements critical of President Trump's immigration agenda. She denied the motion. She denied the motion against herself. How interesting. The Trump administration tried to appeal to the Ninth Circuit, but was denied. Then Martinez Olguin issued an injunction forcing the Trump administration to continue to pay for the legal services, despite the fact that the program does not create an enforceable right to government-funded representation, let alone compel the agency to maintain any particular scope of services or contractual relationship, as the Trump administration pointed out. Taxpayer funding of their own case. Unbelievable. All for illegals. JGG versus Trump. In March, Trump signed a proclamation, number 3, by the way. In March, Trump signed a proclamation invoking the Alien Enemies Act in order to deport alleged members of the Venezuelan terrorist gang Tren de Aragua. The next day, 5 Venezuelans set to be deported filed a lawsuit claiming the law does not give the president the authority to remove them from the country. What? U.S. District Judge James E. Boasberg, an appointee of former President Barack Obama, who sits on the D.C. court, made all persons in the U.S. affected by the proclamation a class and attempted to stop their deportation through a temporary restraining order. Boasberg went so far as to think he could order the return of planes carrying the alleged terrorists back to U.S. shores after they had already left. The Supreme Court vacated the TRO, saying that the plaintiffs needed to file habeas corpus petitions requiring that they file in the judicial district where the person is detained instead of DC. The High Court did not weigh into the claims under the AEA, but stated that the government was required to give anyone set to be deported ample notice of their removal in order to give them time to file a habeas complaint. Multiple habeas petitions were filed, including in Texas, JAV versus Trump, New York, GFF versus Trump, and Colorado, DBU versus Trump. U.S. District Judges Fernando Rodriguez Jr., a Trump appointee serving in Texas, and Alvin Hallerstein, a Bill Clinton appointee serving in New York, and Charlotte Sweeney, a Biden appointee serving in Colorado, quickly signed restraining orders stopping the Trump administration from removing the designated foreign terrorists. Number 4, DVD versus DHS. In February, and I don't think that means digital video device. In February, DHS issued a directive to officers instructing that they review all cases of previously released illegals for redetention and removal to a third country, defined as a country distinct from the individual's actual country of origin. Multiple illegals with final orders for removal sued DHS, challenging this practice of deportation without first providing them notice and the ability to contest the removal and provide a fear-based claim. Who's paying for those lawyers? U.S. District Court Judge Brian E. Murphy, a Biden appointee serving in Massachusetts, granted an injunction to stop the removal of the illegals to third countries, despite the fact that federal law allows for removal of aliens to third countries. While federal law does not generally allow the removal of aliens to countries where the alien might be put in danger, even if it is their country of origin, the government is not blocked from removing the alien to alternate countries that might take them, unless they change this. Quote, withholding of removal is country-specific protection. Thus, even if an alien ultimately succeeds on this withholding claim, he could potentially be removed to an alternate country. The Trump administration filing reads, a grant of withholding only prohibits removal of the petitioner to the country of risk, but does not prohibit removal to a non-risk country. Thus, the alien remains removable as an alien with a final order of removal. It goes on further. Aliens subject to removal orders need not be removed to their native country. Generally, aliens ordered removal may designate one country to which the alien wants to be removed. Don't throw me in the briar patch. And DHS shall remove the alien to that country. 8 USC 1231 B2A, blah, 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 blah. All right, so then the alien may be removed to any country whose government will accept the alien into that country. Murphy's decision is on appeal in the Fifth Circuit. Number 5, national TPS, alien versus gnome, alliance versus gnome. 3 days before Trump sworn into office, Biden DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas extended a designation of temporary protective services for Venezuelans living in the United States. By January 28th, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem vacated the extension and subsequently terminated TPS for Venezuelans who had registered for it in 2023. Quote, in Secretary Noem's assessment, her predecessor failed, among other things, to elevate the key statutorily question whether permitting Venezuelans and Haitian nationals to remain temporarily in the United States is, quote, contrary to the national interest, a Trump administration motion states. National TPS Alliance, an organization representing those with TPS, and a group of Venezuelans turned around and sued the Trump administration, of course, claiming the termination was based on racial bias, seemingly without any regard for being allowed into the U.S. is a privilege, not a right, of foreigners. U.S. District Judge Edward M. Shen, an Obama appointee serving in, of course, California, issued a nationwide injunction on the Trump administration's ability to remove the status, and an appeal to the Ninth Circuit was denied. The nutty ninth, they call it. The Trump administration also filed a motion to dismiss, saying that the district court did not have the jurisdiction to rule because, among other reasons, Congress has barred judicial review of TPS determinations. The Trump administration's appeal to the decision to the Supreme Court May 1st. Judge thinks the president isn't allowed to be chief executive. Number 6, Maryland, of course, versus U.S. Department of Agriculture. Trump issued an executive order to undertake reparations to initiate large-scale reductions in force, RIFs, of course, they make those, in an effort to significantly trim the fat of the federal bureaucracy and in many ways remove some of the employees dedicated to undermining presidencies they do not agree with politically. Multiple Democrat-run states sued because they were left to pick up the pieces of the shattered federal workforce, meaning they had an uptick in unemployment requests from persons whose jobs likely never should have existed in the first place. The Trump administration had initially moved to fire a majority of the roughly 2,200 probationary employees in the federal government, but U.S. District Court Judge James Kelleher Bradar, an Obama appointee serving in Maryland, wow, Obama, Maryland, U.S. District Court, federal government, that's the trifecta of the idiocy. In a 2-1 decision, an appeal to Fourth Circuit issued a stay on Bradar's decision and found that the Trump administration was likely to succeed in showing the plaintiff states lack standing to sue, stating the Supreme Court has stayed a similar preliminary injunction issued by the United States District Court in the Northern District of California, of all places. Number 7, National Treasury Employees Union versus Trump. It's hard to believe that National Treasury employees have a union, but they do, and they sued. In March, Trump signed an executive order terminating the collective bargaining agreements of about 2/3 of federal employees, including several ones negotiated by the National Treasury Employees Union, NTEU. NTEU, the union suing to stop the order, complains that implementing the order will threaten its very survival, quote unquote, and diminish its clout and influence, quote unquote. Yeah, that's the point. The lawsuit is an affront to presidential authority to have control over federal employees, but U.S. District Court Judge Paul L. Friedman, a Clinton appointee serving in D.C., decided that the president did not have the power to prevent labor unions from forming in federal agencies, even if they harm the national interest, despite statutory authority to do so. There you go. Despite statutory authority to do so, they want to overturn these laws. The federal statute that governs bargaining with public sector labor unions authorizes the president to exempt from its coverage any agency or subdivision thereof if the president makes the determination that the agency or subdivision has as a primary function intelligence, counterintelligence, investigative, or national security work, and that the provisions of the statute cannot be applied to that agency or subdivision in a manner consistent with national security requirements and considerations, the Trump administration wrote in response to the suit. The response cited former President Jimmy Carter's exemption of more than 45 agencies from unionizing and executive orders from other presidents doing the same, depending on the nation's changing needs. The case is currently before the D.C. Circuit Court on appeal. Man, those courts are going to be busy with appeals. Number 8, NTEU versus Vought. The NTEU also sued the Trump administration for attempting to pause policy decision-making at the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, CFPB. This is Elizabeth Warren's baby, senator from Massachusetts. After Bureau Acting Director Russ Vought, who is also the director of the Office of Management and Budget, OMB, said the agency would not take its next draw of unappropriated funding because it is not reasonably necessary to carry out its duties. The Bureau's currently balance of $711.6 million is in fact excessive in the current fiscal environment. This spigot, long contributed to CFP's unaccountability, is now being turned off, Vought said. The Trump administration's response in the lawsuit says the Vought was streamlining the actions of the Bureau, not attempting to dismantle it, as the lawsuit states. Plaintiffs seek injunction relief that is breathtaking in scope. The response states that relief would essentially place the CFPB in a judicially managed receivership with its day-to-day decision-making across a universe of issues superintended by the court rather than by the officers designated by the president. Vought shut down multiple operations of the CFPB, but the labor unions representing the Bureau claim that those skirted the statutory requirements set out by Congress, with the Trump administration's denies because Vaught's pauses do not apply to agency activities required by law. Because the public has an interest in ensuring that an agency can carry out its statutory duties in line with the policy priorities of the democratically elected administration, the public interest and balance of the equities tip in defendants' favor, it continues. Nevertheless, U.S. District Judge Amy Berman Jackson, an Obama appointee serving in D.C., declared that the Trump administration shall not delete, destroy, remove, or impair any data or other CFPB records covered by the Federal Records Act and shall not terminate any CFPB employee except for cause related to the specific employee's performance or conduct. On appeal to the D.C. Circuit Court, stayed Jackson's injunction in part insofar as it prohibits defendants from terminating or issuing a notice of reduction in force to employees whom defendants have determined after a particularized assessment to be unnecessary to the performance of defendant's statutory duties. After Vought issued a reduction in force to remove any of the CFPB employees, Jackson immediately got in the way, ordering that the reduction in force announced by Acting Director Vought on or about April 17, 2005 is suspended and it may not be implemented, effectuated, or completed in any way until this court has ruled on plaintiff's motion to enforce the preliminary injunction. The circuit rejected an appeal from the Trump administration. I will read the rest of these, beginning with number 9, on the next episode. So that is it for this episode. I want to thank you, Nanette Malher, for really just standing up and fighting for the ultimate little guy that have the unlimited resources and might of the U.S. government ready to roll right over them. What a shame. We need energy, but do we really need it in this case, in this way, from an agency that hasn't had such a great track record in almost 100 years, the TVA? This is Goodbye for Now. I'm your host, Steve Abramowitz, editor-in-chief of HeartlandJournal.com. See you all next time. Peace in our time, and definitely glory to God.
Yeah, I've been dreaming of the wild, wild plains, walking where the pine trees dance, where the river runs deep and the birds all sing.
Any views or opinions represented on the podcast are personal and belong solely to the creator and do not represent those of people, institutions, or organizations that the creator may or may not be associated with in a professional or personal capacity unless explicitly stated.
Myself ever get this far from the heart.